Right, so in today's video I want to talk a little bit about how this lawn is getting on. As you can see, it's looking fairly dense at the moment, and if you've stuck around on this channel for the past month, you'll know that this space was looking quite thin the other weekend with one feed, and as of today only 3 cuts. It's looking pretty decent. However, it doesn't mean that it's absolutely perfect. You might be able to see, there we go, there's one. There's the odd bit of weed grass knocking about. There's another piece over there. There's a little bit over this side. So it's not completely flawless, but if we just get in over the top of the sward now, you can see it starts to thicken up really, really well. And if you've got a ryegrass lawn, then feeding it and cutting it's not going to thicken the thing up. The only way you can do that is to get on with a little bit of seed, whereas with this, it absolutely doesn't need it. And I think just give this another month. Let's get to May and let's just see how decent this is looking. But before we pull those weed grasses, let's give it a quick cut. I think I'm on around about, let's have a look, about 18 mil, 17 mil, give or take. Let's take a little bit off the top of the sward. I know someone's going to say put the grass collector on the front because there's a few weed grasses knocking about, but there's no weed seeds on any of the tops of the plants at all. It's just all low-lying stuff at the moment, so this isn't going to flick any more seeds about. So we'll give it a cut, bring the height down just ever so slightly. What's been absolutely boss recently is the stripes are just becoming more and more defined as the cuts go on. That's its 4th cut of 2025, and you know, like I said, it's not perfect, but it's certainly looking pretty decent so far. This bit looks a little bit stressed just where I turned the lawnmower. In the next few weeks it's going to be looking boss, and you've got to remember that with this sitting in the shade for most of the day, and even now it doesn't look nearly as good as what it would look in the sun. My lawn at the front, which, you know, funnily enough I've just killed because we're going with the same grass variety that we've got here this year, that's nowhere near as dense as what this is at the moment. However, it looks a million times better, and it's literally because the sun's out. It puts all the darker patches in a bit of shade and makes it look a little bit nicer. So when you see videos or pictures of lawns, especially fairly big lawns from a distance with the sun on them, they look like they're almost flawless, whereas you can't really hide any of the imperfections on a space this small, which I guess is the kind of my disadvantage at times. So using the trusty fork today and bucket to get rid of any of these weed grass plants that we have, and I'm just going to rake the leaves up. Let's get right underneath. Just pull out as much of that weed plants as we possibly can. We might leave a few patches behind. With this being a creeping type of grass, those spaces are going to fill themselves in. The more I cut the lawn and the more I feed the lawn, the more it's going to work for me. And that's what it's all about, really. Lawn care is doing the basics right and getting some pretty decent results. If you continue to do the same thing year on year and get the same sort of mediocre results, then you've got to change it up. Ryegrass works for a lot of people, but then for a large number of people it doesn't work. And I think part of the reason for that is it's location dependent, it's condition dependent. If you go out now and replace your entire clay soil with a sandy soil, spending an absolute arm and a leg to make it happen, and somehow put your lawn in the sun for the entire day, if you can even make that happen, then you're going to get a really decent ryegrass lawn. However, if you've got a shady lawn and you've got clay soil, then ryegrass just isn't going to take. Any lawn's going to look boss in the summer, but in the winter you're going to want a lawn that's able to survive still and thrive, and ryegrass just isn't that beast. Someone did ask recently, I think it was on Instagram, I posted a picture of the bottom lawn down there with all the weed grasses that I'd removed, and it's left quite a lot of patches. I've killed some of them with Roundup, and I've pulled some of them like I'm doing now with a fork. And they said, you know, is that a problem with Benfescu? Are they more susceptible to getting weed grasses? And absolutely not. I think if anything, it's your ryegrass that's going to be more prone to getting more weed grasses, because when it thins out over the winter, it leaves so many opportunities for Poa annua or any other kind of weed grass to take hold. This is an opportunistic plant. It's going to take any and all opportunity that it can get its hands on. I mean, I had some of this growing in the garage door the other year on like the actual rim where you lift it up, and I had wheatgrass growing in it, and that just proves that this plant will grow literally anywhere. And look at the size of this beast here. Some of these were nowhere near this size the other week, but like with all the other plants in the lawn that we've got, the more we cut the bent grasses and the fescues, the more they're going to thicken up on their own. And that's the same thing with a wheatgrass plant. If you feed it, it's going to grow. If you cut it, it's going to encourage more growth. But if you remove them now at this early stage, then they're less likely to become a problem. And if you do have quite a few in your lawn, don't stress on it. I think there's too much content out there at the moment where people's lawns are absolutely perfect, and like I've already said, often that's because people take pictures when the sun's out. Very rarely people upload stuff to YouTube or Instagram where it's in the shade or when it's an overcast day, because it shows the true reality of the lawns. Now, some people do. Some people show them in the shade and look absolutely boss, and you can't complain, and they're doing something right. But really, it is nature. But don't be disheartened if you've got quite a lot in your lawn. It's nothing to do with you doing anything wrong. Sometimes it's just what nature's choosing. When you buy a bag of grass seed and it says like a shady mix, that just means it has grass types which are more tolerant to survive in a shady space. But what will happen is when you plant it, some of them will germinate, some of them won't. Some varieties will germinate more than others or thrive more than others, and nature will find a way. When you're knocking about on like a field, like a council field or a public field or a grass verge by the sides of the road, no one's overseeding that. That's just nature deciding what's going to work best. Some years it's got quite a lot of fescues in there and bents, and some years it's filled with quite a lot of moss, and that's because nature's just figuring things out. As nature changes, the space changes. But with lawns, we're obviously trying to control as many of those variables as we possibly can. But you just got to remember, we can't control everything. And if you have a few weed grasses, you've got a few weed grasses. It is what it is. I've had comments on this channel in the past where people give me loads of stick because they say, look at the state of your lawn, or it looks an absolute mess, or oh, it's riddled with weed grasses. And it's like, mate, I've got a full-time job, you know, I'm busy, I'm working. I come out and film these videos as and when I can, and at time of recording, the clocks have just changed, which means after work is a little bit more feasible to come out. But you know, not everyone's blessed with the perfect soils, with the perfect conditions. Unfortunately, we all have to work with what we've got. Fortunately, in some cases, but in terms of mine, I've got some really difficult cases, and I always stand by the fact that if I can get lawns this decent growing in spaces like I've got them in, literally anybody can get a lawn like this, or even better, a chimp could do it. Literally give the chimp the rules that I'm following. Absolutely sound. And I've still not decided whether I'm going to overseed this lawn yet. That side absolutely doesn't need it. This side's looking really, really thin. But my thought process is that, is it because it's still not getting really any sun over this side, and once it does start to get some of that sun, then it'll start to thicken itself up, and maybe it doesn't. And if I do have to get on with seed, then that's again the nature of the beast. You just got to react to the lawn you've got, because I don't want this looking like a bit of a mud bath for the rest of the year. Don't looking really thin and patchy. But there's a huge difference between that there and this side. And one thing that I'm noticing here is that this has significantly less wheatgrass plants compared to that lawn down at the bottom. And I think part of the reason is because this space was turfed last year. The grass was already fairly established, and once we'd fed it and cut it a few times, the density was just absolutely off the chart. I put some footage up of how dense the sward actually was, and it is literally getting back to how dense it was in the summer. So it's a good sign to see. But like I said before, it's an opportunistic plant. It takes the opportunities. The ryegrass is going to leave some spaces. This grass has not left a lot of spaces. So the wheatgrasses have done what they can, and fair play to the fellas. They've given it a good crack, but it's safe to say they've not done nearly as good of a job as they have down there, because this sward is just so much more mature and developed and, you know, comfortable now in this space. There we go, Bob's your uncle. That's pretty much every wheatgrass plant that I can see, and there might be the odd one that's knocking about somewhere in the sward that I've just not seen, and someone's probably seen one on camera and is going to tell me, but I'll do this process again in the next few weeks. There's one. I know it. Do it in the next few weeks and just pick up any of the stragglers, but I think, oh, there's more here, look at this, all these fellas under this plant. But I think what they'll do is, I'll just let the lawn do its thing, let it thicken itself back up and recover, and then see how many are surviving after that. So I think overall, to literally only have those few patches is just testament to the quality of that sward. Colour looks a bit naff at the minute, just because, like I said, it's sitting in the shade, it's still recovering slightly. This one down at the bottom, whoa, he's had an absolute nightmare, pulled so many from it. I've killed loads of them with Roundup, and it will recover, it will survive. It's looking a million times better than it did this time last year. It's just a night and day difference, and if you want to do the same to your lawn, or you want to do similar to what I've done to my spaces, then follow along on this channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll keep you up to date with how everything's looking. I'm going to try and post as regularly as I can this year, just because I know there's a lot of people out there who do similar to their lawns and want to have that comparison as to how does yours look, how does mine look, why is mine thriving more, why is yours thriving more? Is it because of the soil? Is it because of the grass variety? Is it because of the feed you've been putting down? Is it because of how regularly you've been cutting your lawn? Or is it to do with how often you've been watering the space? Who knows? Could be a million different factors, maybe not a million, but quite a few different factors. So if you want to follow along with lawn care, that's simple. That doesn't involve buying 1 bajillion products. That doesn't involve spending an absolute fortune. Then stick around. On this lawn, it's had 1 application of feed so far. That's probably equated to the best part of £5, £6 that it's had. And other than that, you know, it's not really cost a lot. I'm going to put another feed on soon. It might take us to £10, £12, something like that. But this lawn's going to cost me literally nothing this year. I've got a feeling. Well, I say nothing. I'm going to obviously put feed down, but really, really minimal. And it's tiny, so it shouldn't really cost a whole lot to maintain. And even if you've got a big lawn, it shouldn't cost a lot either. So subscribe if you haven't already. As always, the Instagram is in the description below. And I've also started a TikTok. It's called Novice Gardener Official, because a few people have like stole my photo, some of my videos, and started like posting things on there. And they've done pretty well, to be fair. So I'm on there now as well. I'm on all the platforms pretty much, other than Facebook. So yeah, like the video if you enjoyed it, found it useful. And finally, thanks for watching.